rapidly expanding BIM workflow, and how it can really help in terms of addressing the pain area of achieving a good quality model so that you can rely on the deliverables that is expected from the same. So before I start, probably I'll just spend a minute in explaining who we are. We are about 1,000 people company headquartered in Pune. So we are the technology division of Neilsoft Group, and we are resellers of leading technologies like Autodesk, Nemestic solutions, which include Solibri as well as Bluebeam. We are also the master resellers for FM systems, which is one of the Autodesk endorsed FM program used for facilities management. We have our own IP, Cadison, which is a BIM solution for the plant engineering space. Sigma is a stress analysis program, and 3D Connection is another partner where we represent them for optical mouse and 3D mouse. Neilsoft has been associated in the BIM space for quite some time now in terms of helping architects, consultants, contractors. And in 2008, we had in fact acquired a company called CADforce from Los Angeles to gain the know-how of doing BIM execution planning, implementation, and workflow generations. As far as activities are concerned, we help our customers in terms of their entire BIM migration, or the technology evolution, right from helping them in terms of building up the strategy, how to go about building up their BIM execution plan, team expertise in terms of developing the teams. One solution which is not mentioned here is CAD Learning, which is again another digital learning platform which we are promoting quite a bit to really enhance the way the adoption of BIM is happening in the industry. As I said, we deal with different stages of typical project activities, and today we're going to be touching more in terms of the solution that can really help you implement BIM properly, as well as ensure the quality assurance during the design as well as the engineering stages, and that's Solibri. So this is a very important disclaimer. This particular webinar is relevant to you only if you are in the business of either building up a model, reviewing, or approving it. Not a 3D or a BIM workflow, not using the models or any kind of BIM models, then this webinar. So with that, as we are progressing further, as we are moving more and more towards implementing BIM, our day-to-day's workflow, we are relying more and more on the model accuracy to really generate the kind of construction and fabrication drawings, the quantities, the 4D analysis and 5D costing that we really want to do from the model information. We use the same model information for building performance. Now, all this information, if it is getting published and being used for real construction work, there is a huge dependency that comes up in terms of the quality of the model, in terms of how the model is being built. Not only on the geometry part of it, but essentially the metadata, the embedded parameter that goes inside. And checking all this parameter becomes very important. Another skill development. Initially, a lot of people used to outsource BIM services. There were a lot of service providers, and the typical reason was wage arbitrage. But you're now looking at actually developing countries, even underdeveloped countries where projects are going on. They are leveraging a lot of service providers to help on the BIM front, and the real reason is the skill arbitrage. Today, we really have a severe shortage of senior staff who are from the BIM industry, who are 10-20 years experience in the BIM industry. We really have a huge shortage of that staff across, and it's a global shortage. And in this particular shortage, if you really see, we induct a lot of people in the modeling exercises. You have like generally one checker or a typical team lead assigned to a team of 10 to 15 people. Now, If you really look at this particular workflow, the work is processed by each of the modeler, and then the individual checker try to check it, come back to it. So there is a huge time gap which is there in terms of the workflow between the checker and the particular person who is generating the model. Now, what we are trying to talk about is, if we have a situation where this particular checker can go and sit with each of the modeler. So imagine the situation where now checker is just sitting next to the modeler, ensuring that he is giving right feedback at the right time. So we are not getting into an exercise of finding mistakes after the work is done. It is a progressive exercise. We are also encouraging the process of implementing first time right, which means that now the modeler has access to this checker. He does his modeling work, he checks his modeling work, and then he is giving out the outcome. Now that will enhance the entire workflow in such a great way that when the person who is sitting at the top, when he starts receiving the information, he starts getting a good product. The generic quality issues generally on which he used to spend a lot of time in resolving, those things are already resolved. So this particular fundamental, so this is what we are trying to now do with Solibri. With Solibri, we are trying to create an automated checker or a replica of this particular quality checker who can actually be provided to each modeler so that he can check his work, he can check whether his work is complying to the required parameter or not, and he can go. Now, what kind of work that can exist? From a typical design perspective, it is not just clash detection every time. Clash detection is collision between two geometric objects. But when you really look from a design perspective, there are so much clearances rules. There are rules related to government code guidelines. There are sometimes client requirements, margins. There are sometimes serviceability requirements. Now, if you really look at all these design parameters, it is beyond clash detection. And if you're able to automate and provide an engine which can help you do these checks automatically, it can really add a great value in terms of your existing workflow, not just the time, but a lot of cost, because now your overall time is squeezed. You're not getting into, again, a paper workflow of somebody actually doing a markup, checking it, producing the drawings from the Revit or any other BIM software to really check it, mark it up, and send it back. Now, this process is getting completely automated. So what kind of checking we are talking about? We're checking about advanced clash management here. There are other tools that can do here, but in terms of Solibri, the greatest part of Solibri is it's an IFC based tool. So it doesn't matter if you're working on Revit, if you're working on Tekla, ArchiCAD, Solibri can work with any of the OEMs till the time they're able to give their file formats in IFC format. As well as Solibri has its own tool called IFC Optimizer that helps you really greatly enhance the IFC files and reduce the size so that the file size becomes lighter. The processing of the model and the checking process is much more, fast. Efficiency detection. Now, this is again a great value where, knowing what is not there, it's very important. Now, you can automate these kind of rules where this model, it's not just about finding what is wrong in the model, it's about finding what is not there in the model, and these kind of checks can be applied using Solibri. This is again a very important example. Most of the time, when we start up the modeling work, in a typical BIM execution plan, as well as the protocols that are prescribed by a lot of standards like BS 1192, we generally try to ensure that the ownership of each of the element remains with the respective authoring agency who has the legal and the contractual obligation to own that particular component. But when a typical multidisciplinary team of a single organization is working on that, you tend to have a lot of confusion in terms of architecture, structural elements. Sometimes architects start modeling the beam columns themselves, and this is where you try to get into looking at how does the entire the verification of the process happens in this area. Managing change orders and design versions. Now, change is a part of every project. You can't say that I would like to work on a project where there will be no change. And most of the time, people resist moving into a BIM environment because they say that it takes a lot of time to implement change in BIM, and it takes time to update the models, etc., etc. Now here, Solibri provides a great advantage in terms of really checking the design changes that have happened between two versions, and provides you the ability to really go back and tell and present the change analysis part of it in terms of showing each and every area where the model components have changed. Data mining. As I said, BIM is a set of BIM model is a set of data. It could be geometric data, the metadata. Now, Solibri provides you a great access in terms of mining this data to your access, in terms of playing with this data in a very fluid environment, and it's very light. As the file sizes are light, you can essentially implement this very quickly and try to work around to your convenience. Specifically, if you have any questions during the webinar, I would request you to kindly put that on the chat box. We will surely come back and address each of the questions. So with this, I have my colleague Varun, whom I'm requesting to deep dive into the program and let you know in terms of what exactly Solibri does. Varun is going to also show you, the live model in terms of how the GUI looks like. Bear with us for a moment while we are transferring the rights of presenting to Varun. Yeah, Varun, you can take over.
Good afternoon. So I would like to continue with to show the application, how Solibri look like, and how we can do the model checking in that. So as we came to know that there are different roles in an organization. When you see a typical BIM production work, so there are a lot of multidisciplinary model authoring people who will be developing the model. So the main the advantage of Solibri is like you can make the rule sets based on their roles and responsibility in the organization. So if you can see here, there are different roles like BIM coordination, BIM validation architectural, BIM validation for MEP. So these are different roles in an organization where you can we can make the templates. So in this particular role, if a person logs into Solibri, how you can check the model as per the requirements. So if you can see this screenshot of an interface, so you can typically you can make a role name here. So in this particular example, we have taken BIM coordination as a role. So you can set the rule sets. So we can make the example rule sets or any specific rule sets depending upon the role, and we can assign to it. So there are by defaults the Solibri in the package itself. There are many rules and rule sets which have been given in the product. So we can copy it and we can modify the rules as per our organizational requirements. So when it comes to workflow, in the Solibri, if you are using any authoring tool, So it might be Autodesk Revit, it might be ArchiCAD, or it might be any other BIM tools which basically support IFC exchange format. So you can export the IFC and you can bring it back to Solibri. And the best part is now with BCF file formats, like building collaboration file formats, whenever you can you detect an issue in Solibri, you can bring back those issues into your authoring tool without without much any data loss or without much any manual work as such, because in some of the other applications you need to copy the element ID and bring it back to the native authoring tool and search it by element ID. But BCF gives you a greater collaboration where you can BCF allows you to directly open that specific 3D view of any of the issue which you are detected in Solibri. So this is a type of a typical rule set which you have been applied. So for example, now there is a door opening direction definition which has been defined. So in the right hand side, you can see the checking of the door opening direction has been tick mark. So these are the I'm showing this screenshot of the typical rule sets. So by default, there are a lot of rule sets which is given by Solibri, but we can modify it as per our requirements. I'll be deep diving into the application part of it also, so that you can know the user interface, how you can create the rules and modify the rules. So based on this previous rule set, the Solibri model checker checks it. If you see the BIM model in the floor plan, the door swing is missing here. So this has been identified in the Solibri, and since it is an IFC file format, all those definitions which is related to the BIM model. So in IFC file format, if you see, each of the model element has their own property sets. So since it is an IFC, the property sets set itself is like a filter system where you can check the models as per the property sets. So in these rule sets, if you see the sample, the component distance rule sets, if you see, there is a different type of tolerance checking which you can do. There is a minimum 2D checking distance, minimum 3D rule component distance which you can check, and also many other rule sets like above, below, and alongside. So for this, I'll be showing a detailed example here. So you can, if you see the check minimum distance, so you can specify the distance of the above element or the below element here in the user interface. So for example, if there is any MEP model consists of an electrical room in the ground floor and no domestic or firefighting pipe should pass through it, so you can specify it, and the space proof which, see, if you see in the right left hand side, there is an element which has been specified, and in the right hand side, if you can see the space properties which has to be checked. So even whenever there is a pipes flowing through the electrical room, so when we can make those rule sets and we can use it in all the projects. So if there is an electrical space defined and there is any requirement where there should be no any domestic water pipes or firefighting pipes which should go above those spaces, so we can make the rule sets and we can check those things. So, but basically when we are modeling in Revit, we have to model the spaces so that the system understands which type of space it is. Because if we are excluding the spaces or rooms from the model, it might be difficult for even for Solibri to understand. So to make the model much more efficient, we have to make the spaces and rooms in the model. So this is another example of a typical NBC code where there is a minimum distance of building code required for the toilet fixtures. So the rule sets has been defined here for the object and for the which space it needs to be checked. And we can see this in the public restroom. So Solibri gives us this type of outputs where we can check those things, minimum distance or clearances required. And also for the this is more relevant for the architectural community, where the space name and number is very much of concern when they are designing specific spaces. So when it comes to a standard in the Revit, there might be some modeling errors where there might be duplicates of spaces, or if the space does not have a unique name or a property set, we can directly through our deficiency detection, which is a part of deficiency detection rule set, we can check the for the unique identifier. so that each spaces which is created in the Revit has a unique identifier, and we can check that in the Solibri templates. And this is also a very interesting part, which is like BIM based design validation. So whenever we are having sorry, I lost myself. So if you can see here, if there is any uh, I was talking about the BIM based design validation. So if there is any in typical BIM workflow for the MEP components, or for the specifically for the HVAC components, so if there is any rule sets or anything which has to be designed for the logical designing part. For example, if there is a VAV damper which has been deployed in the system, there are other mandatory systems which has to be present in the model. So if you can make those things checking manually, it takes a hell lot of time for us to define the systems and then check the systems as per the design rules. But in Solibri, since we are adopting the BIM based workflow for modeling of those systems, it becomes very easy when there is a logic analyzer where we can check the logics for different components. So here, for example, if in the left hand side we can see the flow controller, distribution chamber elements. So these are the different elements which is there in the model, which should be mandatorily present in the BIM model, which will be checked for. For if there is any system like a VAV system or any other systems, and it needs some other system which is accompanying those systems, and if you want to check in the model, we can make the rule sets as per that, and we can check that. And even for example, if you are using your BIM models for any further energy analysis or any other simulation purposes, so we can there is a particular requirement of the size of the model or the model geometry which has to be built in. So in the right hand side you can see the pre-check of energy analysis which has been done. The modeling requirements for those particular energy analysis can be defined. Similarly, here there is one more example where you can see the air terminal dimension values. So since in this example we are checking the model from another model authoring tool called as MagicCAD. So where we can check the models irrespective of where the model is coming from, where we can check the for the values of the air terminals dimensional values. So this is all type of design validation which we can do, provided the elements are present in the BIM model, and we have the attribute data attached to it, and we can check those things in the Solibri. So this is also a similar type of example. Here, these are all the rule sets which is by default present in Solibri, but we can make as per our design requirement or design criteria. So we can make our own templates or modify the existing templates which is present in Solibri as per our requirements, and the values, all those things we can change as per that. So now we will quickly move to the Solibri live demo tool. So So this is a sample model which is opened in Solibri. It is an IC file format architectural and structure model which has been opened, which has been modeled in ArchiCAD. So by default, if you see, there is a BIM coordination role which has been applied to it. So according to that, we can see in the checking, these are all the rules which has been applied. So once we can add the rule sets from here. So by default, as per my role specified, it is taking these rule sets from here. But even if it is any other rule sets which is required for the specific task, we can add those rule sets here. So I will be going to check those rule sets here. So once I check those rule sets, so if you see, there is a component check happening. So the wall dimension should be sensible. So if you see here, these are all the rule sets which has been applied here. So specifically for wall height, wall thickness, or wall length, and wall opening distances. So if you see here, so it is showing there should be a minimum opening distances which has been specified. So if you want to see what type of backend engine is running here for this rule set, you can see it from here. In the parameter section. So this is the formula which is based on this rule set. So for wall opening distances, so these many parameters it is been checking for the door and start and start and the end part, and the direction for it, and the minimum distance greater the values which is it is been checking here. So for any of this, for the wall length also, if you see, so this is a deficiency detection, or see if there has been an element which has been named wall, but logically the length of the element will not be so much, so the wrong property value. So if you see again here, the parameter for this, it has been defined. So the values of this wall or the curtain wall is been defined, but it is not matching those requirements, and it has been detected. So door and windows openings must have the minimum depth and all those things. It is a similar kind of thing. And for the clearances, so clearance in front of windows. So if you see, there is a column which is obstructing window here. Okay, so there is a clearance issue here, but these type of issues can be found out for any of the things. For example, for a typical AHU, there might be some clearances which has been required for servicing. So those type of these type of examples or pre-default values can be taken for any other elements. Instead of a window, I can replace it by any other elements in the BIM model, and for instead of column, I can replace it, and we can check those values here. So clearance in terms of doors and windows. So if you see in here, there is a window here, and the suspended ceiling is been obstructing the vision of that window. Okay, so for this, if you want to see the formulas running in behind, so these are the things which has been going in behind for the for these rule sets. The clearances has been defined here, and this can be duplicated, and it can be made as per our requirement also. And as I said, the element which has been checked against whatever element, we can change those elements. The clearance above suspended ceiling, especially for the architectural design community, if you want to maintain any specific clearances in the while the designing of these elements, so if there is any plenum height which should be maintained, but in a huge space or the huge modeling efforts, we might miss out some things. But in Solibri, we can make those templates, and we can run those things. And it see, it is showing us there is a minimum requirement here, but it is not been met. So if you see, even the dimension of those things has been marked automatically. So this is ceiling, and this is a slab surface, and this has been calculated, and it is showing the error. And again, if you want to see the formula here, so this is the formula which is being used for this type of clash checks, and this is all adjustable. So these values are all not hard-coded values. We can change the values, and we can make as per our requirements. So these are all the required components, even for the material takeoff. For example, if you want to take off the material, So if there is no construction types defined in the model, so this is a type of a staircase for which in the BIM model the construction type has not been defined. But when we go for the quantity takeoff and we are adapting the BIM methodology, if the construction type of these elements has been missed out, and we will be our quantity takeoff will not be accurate. So these type of errors which will occur while modeling can be detected to the Solibri. And if you see here the components above column, so this is one type of rule, so where the columns is not touching the slabs. Again, this is again a modeling error which has been detected by Solibri. And basically in any other applications, these are not the clashes as such, but these are all the deficiencies or the inaccuracies in the model which is specifically identified by Solibri. And we can make the rule sets for this. So these are all the sample use cases which I am showing it to you, but it can be as per your use cases or your organizational requirements or the disciplines which you are working on. So we can make those rule sets customized. So again, there is a wall which is been not touching to each others. So these type of issues generally comes when we are going for the BIM based quantity takeoff, where the model should have the right property sets as well as constructability as per the site conditions. So there is a revolving door which must have swing door. So swinging doors. If you see this. The swinging area diameter has been specified, but in the model we are not having so much clearances. So again, if you see the parameters behind this, you can see for the value, the revolving value, it is taking from the IFC property set. So the target component and the source component has been defined. So basically, if we want to do all those clash detection or this is not the clash detection where the two objects specifically collide, but these are type of the quality issues which are there in the model. Okay, so for I'll go to the any specific issues and I'll show the communication or the reporting feature of Solibri. Where we can make the reports very handily. So taking example of specific these issues. So once I go to the communication tab, we can click on presentation, and as I said earlier, there is a BCF file also. From if you make a BCF file, so we can take it back to Revit, and the same view, the specific view which is there on the right side, opens up in Revit without much effort. So we can add this, and we can add all the information related to that. Okay, so location is automatically taken from which location it is coming, and the component related errors and all those things. So we can export this also, and we can make it in a BCF file format, in a PDF or in an Excel coordination report. And whenever the model gets updated, we can go on updating the IFC file, and we can see what is the status of this. And like any other model coordination or clash detection tools, we have all the coordination status like open, assigned, resolved, and these are typically the part of the model coordination terminologies which has been used by many of the industry applications. So even if I want to make a section, for example, if I want to make section box of only this specific element, so it is very difficult while using in any other tools to make specifically the area sections of this. But here it is very easy. For example, if I click on this, I can create automatically the section box. So, and I can take this into the communication tab, and I can make the only the presentation of only this section box. So here I can add those issues, and I can comment. I can add all those things here. So information takeoff is one more feature, one more main feature where we can take the information out of the model based on different classification. So if you see, there are a lot of classifications which is by default present in Solibri, the COBI class format, COBI, the uniclass or omniclass file formats. So where it is all international based standards where we can specifically extract the quantities in a specific way, and it is all the set templates or guidelines. But if you need anything, if you need customization, we can also create the classification as per our requirement also. So we can make our own classification. If your organization has a specific BOQ format or information takeoff format, we can specify those things, and we can make our own classifications here. So that's all from me, the brief introduction about the tool and some of the rule sets. So we can create the rule sets from the rule sets manager also. So there is a rule set manager here, and we can take the default rule sets and we can make copy of those things, and we can make new rule sets also. So there is a promo which has been running. I'll ask my colleague Sunil to share the promo details in the slide.
Thanks, Varun. While Varun has just explained to you about the demo of the Solibri in terms of how the tool looks like and what are the areas it can do, I just wanted to kind of touch base before we conclude and get into question answers in terms of what is the real investments we're talking about. So essentially, if you really look at come back to the old story of what we're actually trying to achieve. We're trying to achieve in terms of enhancing the efficiency of the team leads that we have, of the quality analysts, and Solibri can actually increase the productivity by more than 10 times. Now, in terms of cost, if you really look at, at this point of time, along with this webinar for each of the attendees who are here, we're offering this particular offer. So, I'm sure you must be guessing in terms of if you can enhance your cost structures and save so many man hours, what would be the cost of Solibri? So Solibri comes at a very modest price of just 5,000 euros per seat. Okay, and it can help you in terms of, it comes on network version also. So network version comes at about, another $1,000 more, 1,000 euros more. It's at 6,000 euros per seat. And you can use this as a part of your integral workflow, and it can enhance the efficiency of each of your team lead, by more than 10 times. Just besides giving you the advantage of all the benefits of ensuring that automated rule-based checking, first time rights, your overall turnaround time on the project will get enhanced. Just for all the attendees, and a very limited offer, which is valid until 30th August of this month, we're offering a flat 15%. Please make a note of our email ID and the mobile number, which is displayed here. So if you happen to call in, if you need any kind of details on this one, you can write back to us. We will be definitely happy to come back and address. A couple of questions coming back to while I just put that. It's a subscription cost or perpetual? No. So the happiest part of this is it's a perpetual cost. It's a perpetual license. Okay, it comes with an AMC of another, if you want to go for AMC, that would cost you about 20% of the license, but it's a perpetual cost. So, it's not a kind of a cost that would keep recurring every year at the same cost. So if anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to address that. Otherwise, please make a note of, offer right now. Take a note of the email ID and the mobile number. If you need to organize a custom demo at your organization, if you feel that we need to, organize a presentation to your technical team, please feel free to write back us on this particular email ID, and we'll be very happy to organize the same. Uh, Neilsoft also deals with a lot of other enhanced workflow enhancing tools, essentially to upgrade your skills, as well as help you in terms of utilizing the best benefit from your existing investments on Revit. We have products like CAD learning. So our next version of the webinar would basically enhance on and focus on CAD learning, which is a solution that can help you increase your skill level and learn almost all of the Autodesk BIM solutions. Is this SMC helpful to check steel connections? There's one question. Yes, definitely. You can use this to check steel models, connections, whatever. See, a connection is nothing but a set of geometric objects. So you can have any kind of geometry coming in either from Tekla, SDS2, Advanced Steel, or any of the steel modeling software, and you can set the rules. You can create the rules to check that. Okay, there's a question on why AMC. AMC helps you in terms of getting, if you would have noticed, there's a lot of evolution happening on the BIM solution. So the version, if you take an example of Revit, what Revit 2014 used to offer and what is being offered in 2017 is very different. There's a lot of changes that is happening. So by paying the AMC and by being on the maintenance side of it, you get a free upgrade. So whenever the new versions of software comes up, the new versions of Solibri with the advanced update comes up, you really get a free upgrade on that one. Besides, some fantastic support in terms of, whatever guidance you need or the troubleshooting that you need. And it's really a very minimal cost of, just 20% of the license cost. There's another question. What will be the size limitation for Solibri? Essentially, it works on, so from a size perspective, there's no limitation as such, because we are already trying to, reduce down the size of the models. So any model that is being modeled using any of the native authoring tool, that gets reduced drastically by, Solibri IFC optimizers. So so far we have not received any kind of issues with reference to size limitations of Solibri. Should we export the file from Revit each time after changes, or is it like Navy option? Varun, would you like to answer this in terms of do we have an automatic switchback like we have between Navis and Revit Works, or we just have to kind of export the Revit model every time?
So even in the Navisworks switchback, you have to export the model once. So it is similar to that. So once we have exported the model, IFC model, and we are coordinating it in SMC, and I just need a BCF file format, which is then nothing but an export from Solibri, and I can bring back the BCF file format into Revit. It is similar to Navisworks switchback with lesser clicks, I can say.
Great. And to Mr. Harichandra Patil, for demo, yes, why don't you just write back on this email ID with your complete details, and our regional team will get in touch with you to give you the demo on your specific case. Priyank is saying, can we use this along with drawings? Drawings are essentially the byproduct from the model. So if the models are correct, the drawings would be correct. So here we are talking about checking the model and not essentially checking any kind of 2D drawings as such. We have another fantastic solution called Bluebeam, which you generally use for comparing drawings. It's an automated PDF drawing comparison tool. So if you're interested in terms of applying a QC process on 2D drawings, please write back to us, and we'll be happy to address you and assist you with that solution. Nirbhay Chauhan, I think, can we add rule checks for reinforcement checking as per respective country codes? At point of time, Solibri provides you a complete independence in terms of whatever rules you want to create based on the template that is there. So you have a freedom to create the rules based on whatever are the codal guidelines that you are following. So there's no restrictions as such. Yeah, Varun, there's a question for you from Tarun. Uh, so if you want to address that.
Yeah.
I have a question related to Revit. So he has a question related to Revit quantity takeoff.
Okay, so can you just read out the question to me, because I'm not able to see that.
There's no further question, but he's just asking. I have a question for Revit quantity. So I'm unable. Okay, he's saying that I'm unable to take off as per IS 1200. So which software will be the best to take off quantities in LBH as per IS standard? Okay, his question is a little different. So probably I'll take it up. So IS 1200 definitely provides you the the measurement guidelines when we used to do the estimations processes. LBH are the parameters, and there are different workflows and workaround, even which you can apply in your native modeling software. So Tarun, probably we can connect offline to discuss this. Archana Swangi, I think you're struggling to kind of get in through your question. Okay, guys, I think with this probably we'll have to bring an end to the session. And if you have any query in terms of technicalities, pricing, demo request, please feel free to write back to us on sales.nes@neilsoft.com, and we'll be very happy to come back to you and advise you and assist you further on that. We really appreciate your presence, and thank you for your time, and I hope this was helpful to you. Thank you so much.